Hi.
Hi.
My name is Daphne. I'm 13 years old. My question for you today is the U.S. national debt is currently at an estimated $31 trillion, making up about 125% of the U.S. GDP.
Our debt to GDP a few years ago was 90% debt to our gross production GDP. Today it's about 125%. So the more they print money, the deeper in debt we get.
In the meantime, over the past few years, the Federal Reserve has telegraphed that they intend to monetize the debt by printing trillions of dollars, even as they insist that they're fighting inflation.
They printed more money in the last, 5 years than ever in history? Well, they're printing more money than ever in the history of the world. Why would you save money when America's the biggest debtor nation in world history? You've got to be really effing stupid.
Already, other major economies in the world, such as China, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil, are moving away from the dollar.
The world is coalescing together in a chorus of unity against the West. They look at the West as being hypocritical. And when you weaponize the dollar as the world reserve currency, the way the United States did against Russia, you incentivize countries to find an alternative.
My question is, are we likely to face a time in the future when the US dollar is no longer the global reserve currency?
If you're still believing in the power of the dollar, you're in serious trouble.
How is Berkshire prepared for this possibility? And what can we do as American citizens to attempt to shelter ourselves from what's beginning to look like the beginnings of de-dollarization?
Well, I should ask you to come up here and answer some questions. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, we are the reserve currency. I see no option for any other currency to be the reserve currency. And I think that nobody understands the situation better than Jay Powell.
These central bankers are the most stupid people I've ever met. You know, like Bernanke, he gets the Nobel Prize for destroying the U.S. economy by dropping interest rates to zero like this. And then now you have this guy, Jay Powell, who's raising interest rates. They're killing us.
And every now and then he drops a few hints. And there was no question that when the pandemic broke out, I mean, it was a semi-war-like situation, but nobody knows how far you can go with the paper currency before it gets out of control, and particularly if you're the world's reserve currency. Nobody knows the answer to that. I think we should be very careful. I mean, we all learned Keynesianism, and we applied it in World War II to the advantage of the country, and we could to prevent inflation during the war. And then the war ended in August of 45. I think in January 46, I think the rate of inflation was at something like 1% or thereabouts. And by the end of the year, I think it was at like 15%. And again, I'm doing this from long memories. But it's easy for America to do a lot. But if we do too much, it's very hard to see how you recover once you let the genie out of the bottle and people lose faith in the currency. And they behave in an entirely different manner than they do when they feel that if they put some money in the bank or have a pension plan or whatever it may be, that they're going to get out something with roughly equal purchasing power. And it just changes the economy, and all kinds of things can happen then. And I can't predict them, and nobody else can predict them, but I do know they aren't good. And I voted for both parties, and it's not limited to politicians of either party or anything of the sort. People take positions. Some of them understand what they're doing. Some of them don't understand what they're doing. If they put me on some medical board, I don't understand what I'm doing. It's not that there's nothing wrong with the fact that you can't master everything. You can't all be Isaac Newton, but you can't go around pretending you do or making decisions on it. And we are not as well off in relation to curbing inflation expectations, which become self-fulfilling, then we are not as well off as we were earlier. And Berkshire is better prepared than most investments for that kind of a period. But I said this in the annual report, but we aren't perfectly prepared because there's no way to perfectly prepare. You don't know what course of action will occur. And it's a very political decision now. It's a tribal decision to some degree. And you hope for leadership that actually will do something, recognizes the problem. And America's an incredible society, rich. We got everything going for us, but that doesn't mean we can just print money indefinitely. But it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Charlie?
Well, at some point, printing money to buy votes will be counterproductive.
Yep.
And we don't know exactly where that comes. And if something is going to be dangerous and unproductive, you ought to keep it a fair distance away. Now, if you have a culture that is exceptionally strong, like Japan, they have done some strange things there.
But they couldn't have been the reserve currency.
No, of course not. But Japan bought back most of the national debt and a lot of the common stocks. Just the Federal Reserve owns practically everything in Japan, and the country's working. It's had 30 years of economic stasis, but it's not going to hell. I really admire Japan, and I don't think we're as good as Japan at taking.
They have a cohesive culture, and we don't, Charlie.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In Japan, everybody's supposed to suck it up and cope, and in America, we complain.
So I hope you come next year with a tougher question. And thank you. And I predict I would love to be being born again today in the United States. I mean, we can do a lot of dumb things and get away with it. We can't do an unlimited number. There are people who care about that. And, you have to be willing to be extraordinarily unpopular. I mean, Paul Volcker. There are other Federal Reserve chair people that would not have done what he did. It's too uncomfortable. And there used to be a politician in Nebraska, and if you asked him some really tough question like, how do you stand on abortion, or he would look you right in the eye and he'd say, I'm all right on that one, and then he moved next. Well, that's what people have done, basically on inflation. And they one way or another, they say I'm all right on that, and then they don't really think about what the consequences of their actions could be, particularly. Anyway, I am still next to the question of two superpowers, and when you get into really destroying a planet, destroying the reserve currency of the world when there's really no substitute, that's madness. But it's also madness to just keep printing money. Yeah, and we know how to do it. And we actually came from a money printing economy in World War II, which was required, and we suffered significant inflation. The price level, I mean, there's a million ways to judge it. Well, that's getting close to the edge of where you don't want to hold dollars anymore. You want to hold something else. You want to hold real estate. You want to hold an interest in a business. Your best defense is your own earning power. If you're the best doctor in town, if you're the best lawyer in town, if you're the best teacher in town, or even if you're the 10th best, you're going to make a good living. The economy is productive, and you will succeed with your talents, but you won't succeed by hoarding dollars. You'll just succeed by the fact that your value to the community, which is a rich community overall, is sustained. So the best investment is always in yourself. That's the answer I would give you.